the Democrats have not been polling well recently, historic lows and all that. Well, that does not mean that the Republicans are loved. Trump right now in an NBC News poll is at 47% approval, 51% disapproval, which I think NBC has presented as the best number they've had for him, which it might be, and each pollster does things a little bit differently. So maybe that's a good thing for Trump, I guess. That 2 months into his second term, he's 4 points underwater, and that will likely be the high water mark of this term. I guess you take your good news where you can. But anyway, when you go to specific policy areas, there's some good news and some bad news for Donald Trump here. 55% approve of his handling of border security and immigration. Now, I would question how much they could actually cite about what he's done. I think they believe he's doing a lot, I guess. It's in the news. He seems fired up about it. Maybe they don't know, or indeed maybe don't care about the fact that they're just disappearing people with their correct paperwork, and science teachers are getting sent to Guantanamo Bay and stuff like that. Maybe they don't care about that. But another area is not doing so well. So he is 8 points underwater on foreign policy. And that's where he's, by the way, trying to distract people a lot. Don't focus on the economy. Shut up about the eggs. I'm gonna give you Greenland, everyone. I'm gonna turn Gaza into a Ritz-Carlton or whatever. And so if you're underwater on your squirrel, I don't know if that's great. He is, let's see, 10 points underwater on the economy, 7 points underwater on inflation, the cost of living, and 7 points underwater on Russia and Ukraine, another one of his attempted distractions. Now, I think the economy and the inflation are an interesting one because he's likely to go down even more once the effect of his policies really come into play. But we should also bear in mind, if he's at like 42% on inflation and the cost of living, how much more can he drop? Because you know that there's a solid third of the country that if he walked into their house and he started literally stealing everything that they own, they wouldn't admit that it's bad for them financially. And so he really only has maybe 9, 10 points total that he can drop. But I think that he might be able to get there. And we can also show along the way, Musk and Doggy are also polling as bad as they have been basically this entire thing, JR. So what do you make of Trump's numbers so far?
I guess unsurprising to an extent, but there's a thing about being an authoritarian and a fascist wannabe is that you don't care about polling. And when it gets decent, or you see something decent on immigration or border policy, or even people still fooled somehow to thinking that these moves that he's making towards the economy are going to help, what makes lazy politics is you don't have to care. Usually politicians have to care about what the constituents are saying, and voters in their base specifically are saying, or else they're not gonna have their job anymore. He got his second term. He doesn't, apparently, according to other folks in Congress, kneeling Republicans apparently don't want him to ever end his term. So with that kind of energy that you've generated amongst this many people that are willing to support these kinds of thoughts and energies, then why would you care about poll numbers? So when they get decent, which I guess 47 is decent for this guy, then you can say, look how great, look, I mean, no one's ever seen poll numbers like this before in their lives, right? And then they'll celebrate those. And then when they drop to 32, they'll be like, look, listen, Democrats are fixing the polls and making it, it's always an excuse. And you know that you'll have people backing you enough to go, yeah, I heard that the Democrats are fixing those polls and now we're down to 32% approval ratings. Whatever it may go to, there's always an excuse with enough people that are willing to back up the BS that you toss at them.
Yeah, and look, the polls they can ignore. I think more people will not be able to ignore the actual financial damage. I think that becomes a little bit harder. I do think a solid 30% can. I think they don't. If they were on the streets, but trans kids couldn't be themselves, I think that 30% of the country would be like, yes, score, give me more. I think, but yeah, we're gonna have to see. And look, as you point out, like there's the fact that he's in his second term, and I mean, look, maybe he'd want to run for a third term. I think there's going to be little left beyond a puddle of orange goo in 4 years. Like there's barely any, and especially like how like the job of being president is wearing. It wears you down, and he's putting in a really rigorous schedule of golf every couple of days, and sometimes he gets out of the cart and walks a few feet, and so that's gonna take a toll on him. But anyway, yeah, I don't think that he necessarily cares. Like ideologically, once they get their tax cut bill, What does it matter if they lose the midterms? Like to the rich, it matters to us. We don't want them to choose the judges or whatever. But from the point of view of the wealthy, what the hell do they care? They're gonna be handed trillions of dollars. Yeah, we'll lose the midterms. Maybe we lose the next presidential election, whatever. The economy's tanked because of what we did. And then the Democrats are gonna have a really hard time fixing everything in just a couple of years. We add that, lingering frustrations about the fact that the Democrats once again won't be able to sufficiently and quickly enough fix the economic turmoil that the Republicans have caused. Also, something Colombians, something bisexual people. We get back in, we get more tax cuts, like rinse and also repeat, which they've been doing for decades at this point. We're gonna try to break that cycle. We're gonna try to break the wheel. But that is what the cycle is right now.
Well, there's one more aspect of that deflection and hope that people won't go that direction, even when it comes to maybe midterms, if we make it to that point. After they get their tax cuts, because obviously that is the number one thing that they've been going for this whole time. That's the whole point of Doge in the first place, to find some kind of excuse and BS reasons why you found this money that you can now give to the billionaires that say they found it. So the whole point, the next point behind the next distraction is, let's generate more conflicts across the world, particularly militarily and bloody conflicts across the world, because the way that politicians always think, and we saw when Bush was in office as well, is if there's a fight going on, everyone has to get more patriotic. Everyone has to back what's happening, or else you're against the military or you're against American interests. So be on the lookout for these kinds of conflicts and these types of fights to increase, despite, again, that whole campaign promise of making sure that your sons and daughters in this military excursions that we go on are gonna end. Look at some of the things he's been saying already, ramping up for more kinds of conflicts in the Middle East and not just Gaza.
Yeah. Members make a difference here at TYT. You help make the show happen, and we see you in the chat with your loyalty badge. Click the join button to become a member today.